Celebrities like the filmmaker Derek Jarman and the chart-topping singer Jimmy Somerville were there to add their support. About 400 demonstrators took part, marching to Downing Street to present a letter to the Prime Minister. It calls on John Major to repeal what the demonstrators see as anti-gay legislation. Minor scuffles broke out when they staged an impromptu sit-in outside the gates, but there were no reports of any arrests. Rob Gillis, Sky News.
Back in London, campaigning group OutRage led a march on Downing Street on Saturday, marking the 25th anniversary this week of the 1967 Sexual Offences Act. A major step forward at the time, this legalised in very limited circumstances sex between men over 21. But protesters were angry that in some respects, lesbians and gays in Britain now have fewer legal rights than we did in 1967.
Then lay down in the Charing Cross Road, where they were removed and arrested by police. No charges were brought, and a delegation continued on to the Commons to hand in a letter for the Prime Minister. OutRage planned fortnightly protests between now and the election. Tricia Ingram's Thames News.
I'm Wyatt reports.
The most strident reaction to the Church of England statement came from the gay protest group OutRage, which disrupted the House of Bishops press conference before being ejected. The statement, Issues in Human Sexuality, is the Church's latest attempt to clarify its thinking on sexuality and homosexuality.
The Church to claim that love between homosexual persons is contrary to Christian teaching. It is a moral evil for the Pope to say that homosexuals should be denied human rights. The anti-gay prejudice of the Vatican says we are human beings with human dignity and feelings and love just like you. And we are fed up with the prejudice of the Catholic Church, which is inciting hatred against us. We ask the Pope, all Christians, to search their conscience and to cast out bigotry and intolerance.
I want the Church to be telling me that I'm an abomination.
I wouldn't come by myself. I'd come with this group of people. Yes, we're here to support each other.
But we do things slightly more theatrically.
I just want the world to change. I don't want her.
Up a lot of anger and a lot of energy.
Just a great buzz. It's just a good feeling to be out here campaigning for something I believe in. It feels positive.
Be around in future years as much as it is now.
Why do you support the new catechism? Why do you support the hate?
Catholic son, Vatican queer bashers.
The Catholic Church is
leave me alone. Hatred and prejudice.
It's a church affair. Crucifying queer. Church affair is a church affair. Crucifying queer. Church affair is a church affair. Crucifying queer.
I think there's a lot of talk of being understood and a lot of talk of pedophilia and smart videos, and what Michael thinks we should answer is, for example, Operation Citrus, right?
Outside Haverstock School this morning, the pressure group OutRage gathered, ignoring protests from some MPs who described their actions as disgusting and diabolical. OutRage say they aim to counter anti-gay prejudice in school playgrounds, which they claim is driving pupils to suicide.
An enormous amount of anti-Lesbian and anti-gay violence in London in the last 3 years, yet out of 68 divisions, only 6 of them have taken up this initiative. So this is by no means a time to celebrate our relationship with the police, we feel.
The 8th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. 8 traffic smooching, 7 queens cavorting, 6 nuns away, 5 Congress. 4 and queens, 3 fairy fathers, 2 lesbian mothers, and a family beyond biology. And a family beyond biology.
MPs have voted to lower the age of consent for male homosexuals to 18. Outside the Commons, gay rights campaigners tried to storm Parliament after MPs rejected the motion to set the age at 16. They were furious.
The furious chant outside the Commons was eloquent testimony to what gay campaigners thought of the decision by MPs to lower the age of homosexual consent to 18, not, as they wanted, to 16.
Outside Parliament, gay rights demonstrators held a vigil during the debate, and when the compromise vote was reached, angry protesters tried to storm the building.
Homosexuelle auf 18 zu senken. Schwulengruppen demonstrierten dagegen, weil die Schutzgrenze für Heterosexuelle bei 16.
And with the result of the second vote for a compromise in the legal age for gay sex at 18 now a foregone conclusion, tempers frayed and the incitements to rush the Houses of Parliament grew more provocative. MPs emerged from the Commons, making their frustration plain.
A peaceful vigil turned to bad-tempered protest when news came through that the age of consent was to be lowered to 18 and not 16 as the campaigners had hoped.
Now! Outside the Commons, several thousand gay rights campaigners had been making their presence felt throughout the debate. As they waited with some optimism outside, many MPs within felt that the arguments for 16 had won the day, until it came to the vote.
Hopes for a reduction to 16 were high. Defeat came as a bitter blow. When campaigners heard the news, some charged the entrance to the Commons. 5 men were remanded on bail on public order offences.
As angry demonstrations erupted outside the Commons after the vote last night, Will Parry, one of the gay men taking the age of consent issue to the European courts, was in tears. OutRage, the wing of the gay movement that advocates civil disobedience, says there'll be another march on Parliament next month in defiance of the law designed to provoke mass arrests.
Britain to lower the age of consent to 16, regardless of the vote at Westminster. Sean Jarvis, GMTV News.
Gay rights protesters tried to storm the Houses of Parliament after a bid to reduce the age to 16 was defeated. During the debate, they mounted a candlelit vigil outside.
Their demonstration had been peaceful and good-humoured, but they were insistent that compromise would not do, and that they wanted equality with the heterosexual age of consent.
In Haymarket, the campaigners sat down, blocking one side of the road, then moved to shut the road off completely. But the police did not carry out mass arrests as the demonstrators had expected. Only one person has been charged and one arrested with obstruction. Instead,
It's becoming a way of life for gay activists, demonstrating on the streets of London in support of consent at 16.
Equality! Now!
This was the scene in the Haymarket as 2,000 gays gathered to march on Parliament.
We are fed up with being treated as second-class citizens.
But the police were determined to stop the march and quickly moved in to break it up. Tempers flared as police were under orders not to allow a repeat of the attempt to storm the House of Commons 3 weeks ago when the vote for gay consent at 16 was lost.